the Sunday Journal. I'm your host, Matt Pitta. Thanks for being with us today. We get together each week to talk about issues that are facing the Cape, the Islands, and all of southeastern Massachusetts. A cultural bent to our program today. We're going to talk about Nth Degree, the latest Nth Degree concert featuring 3 contemporary American composers. The second performance of the Cape Symphony's chamber music ensemble is being called bold and unique, and our guest has been with us before. Jay Cosmos Lee is the Nth Degree series director and violinist. And Jay, it's always good to talk to you. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you, man.
Thanks for being with us today. It's always good to talk to you about what's going on with the symphony and specifically with Nth Degree. We've talked about it before in our program. Let's bring some of our listeners up to speed. Let's start out there. Tell us a little bit about what this Nth Degree is, kind of a new creation over the past couple of years.
That's correct. Nth Degree is a chamber music series in the auspices of Cape Symphony, and we give concerts in Falmouth Academy, down in Falmouth, and also First Congregational Church in Chatham. Now we're actually repeating the same concerts that we do in Falmouth over in Chatham the next day on Sundays. And we're drawing from a pool of the players in the players in the symphony, and also guest artists that we invite to come and do eclectic works of chamber music, not only in the canon of the Beethoven, Mozarts, and the Haydns and the Schuberts, but also ranging to American contemporary composers, which this next concert on January 9th and 10th is going to be featuring, which is called The Americans.
The concept of the Nth Degree, how did that come about?
It was actually sort of a brainchild of the former CEO and executive director came to me and said, I think we would like you to spearhead a chamber music series, since he knew that I had a big background in playing chamber music, not only playing in my current string quartet, but also I've studied a lot of chamber music in my youth and throughout college, and it was one of those things that just kind of culminated in a sense that you want to try it as an experiment, but the first season was so successful that we kept on going and started adding more concerts, and here we are now.
I guess you guys actually sold out for the most part in your first season, so clearly this is something that the patrons of the arts and some of your symphony patrons have attached to, and you're probably getting a whole new audience, I would imagine, too. Do you think you're seeing different faces than just the symphony audience that you would normally see?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when we stretched out our concerts over to Chatham. I mean, it's a whole new set of people that we definitely don't get. I mean, I didn't realize the Cape was actually a little bit provincial that way, that people on one side of the Cape don't really travel to the other side of the Cape to actually see what's happening over there.
A little joke, sometimes people say, I haven't been over the bridge in a while, and they actually mean the Bass River Bridge in Denison, Yarmouth, right. and not actually they don't even know where the Sagamore Bridge is, so you're right about that. So it's great to have this opportunity for people down there, for especially down in the lower outer Cape, to come down and see this performance. So the Chatham performances, speaking of those, are Sunday, January 10th, Sunday, March 13th, and Sunday, June 5th, and tickets are available for all those shows at capesymphony.org. So let's get into some of these shows here. According to the material you folks have provided, you've got what are called musical visionaries that have some serious cred, including 2 Pulitzer Prizes, a Grammy Award, and recordings that have defined contemporary music. So take each one of them if you'd like to. Jay, tell me about each of them. You have Cafe Music, Variations, and Voice of the Whale. Tell us about each of these.
Right. When it comes to contemporary music, I mean, Americans are still sort of in the forefront. I mean, in composing sort of art music, and we've, as composers, Americans have gotten really serious and have been doing some great work, just as a whole sort of nation, I suppose, in the 20th century, and that credit all the way goes back to the Europeans actually coming over during the war, and have it be Arnold Schoenberg to Stravinsky to Hindemith and all those great composers that actually made their trip over to the United States, and they've actually sort of they taught all these young composers and here some of the three that is sort of, in that vein and in that schooling have sort of become important composers on their own. And three of these pieces, actually, if you consider it in like movie terms, they're actually old pieces. They're not new pieces per se. I think the one that was actually composed the most recent, Cafe Music, was still composed in the 90s. The Harbison being composed in the 80s, and the George Crumb Voice of the Whale is actually from the 70s. So, in terms of classical music, sure, if you put it in the canon, they're just baby works, but all because of the recording industry that we have and the YouTubes and all the documenting factors that we have now in our current technology, these are works that are beloved and often listened to, often programmed in chamber music series all over the world. And we're being able to take a slice of some of my favorite works of these three composers and be able to present it on the Cape. And I think how it goes with composers these days. Three of these composers, John Harbison's one of the professors emeritus, I believe, at MIT. Schoenfield currently works at Yale, and George Crumb was a longtime director at UPenn. So, you have these important composers who sort of also occupy these big chairs in institutions that are also still, teaching and discovering new talent in terms of sort of composing for classical music. They're definitely not only are they giants in their field as their own artists and own compositions, but they're also people who are actually a huge force in actually ushering in the new generation too.
J. Cosmos Lee is my guest today. He's the series director and violinist with Nth Degree and their concert series featuring three contemporary American composers this year. They've got a concert on January 9th. That is taking place in Falmouth, then on the 10th in Chatham, March 12th in Falmouth, and then the next day, the 13th in Chatham, the 4th of June in Falmouth, and then on the 5th of June over in Chatham. I'm bouncing back and forth between Falmouth and Chatham for each of those. Jay, you also, you've been involved with the symphony as the concert master, etc. Do you have a favorite? Do you prefer, if you had a choice, like, I'd rather be doing Nth Degree today or the symphony? Is there enough of a difference that it's interesting enough for you? I'm always interested with artists and musicians about what they actually prefer in terms of what they perform.
Right. I think it's great to actually have that variety. I think I'm very fortunate to have given the chance to not only lead the series and program music that I want to play with people who are around me that are fabulous artists, but also when I play with the symphony, I step into a different role. It's almost like, I think in sort of using a baseball analogy that if you go, I guess some people just want to DH all the time. But I'm actually given a chance to actually be a utility player one day, and then go in and be the DH, and one day be the manager. And I guess in some ways that sort of variety really keeps me sort of engaged, and also like the work is different in a sense that I can be in the forefront, I can be in the background. Not that playing concertmaster is in the background. However, but it is being led by Jung Ho, who is the conductor, and he is sort of the force that I defer to him. Obviously, when it comes to the decisions and the artistic lead when I play with the symphony. So it's a really good balance, and I enjoy doing both tremendously. It's been really fortunate that way.
I love that you use the baseball analogy. I know you're a huge Red Sox fan, so I like that.
That's right.
Nice job. When it comes to these three series of concerts that are coming up, between the three of those, let's talk about those. Do you have a preference among those? George Crumb, John Harbison, or Paul Schoenfield? What do you like about each of them? Is there one that's either maybe a little more difficult or challenging? Or talk about the differences between those three.
Well, the Harbison is a set of variations. It actually it's a beautiful piece composed for three instruments, for piano, violin, and clarinet. And he actually uses sort of the variation form to the max. I mean, he has variations in there that is piano alone, violin alone, clarinet alone. Then he actually uses two instruments in some of the movements. Then obviously there are ones that he uses all three instruments. So he's actually taking sort of the form to its utmost, which, I mean, he actually spins the material very beautifully in the sense that it weaves through the entire piece as one. I think people will love that. The Schoenfield is a very jazz-influenced piece. Sort of, I think he was imagining. Schoenfield apparently played a lot of sort of lounge piano in his early days before he actually started, composing seriously. And I think it was doing maybe both at some time too. But so there's a lot of like swing influence, like in early jazz. You can hear the influences in the piece, which is really fun for the ears, and it's got a beautiful solo in between, sort of the romps on the outer movements. And then you have George Crumb, which is, I mean, this is a Voice of the Whale is sort of a theatrical piece in a sense that it's written for piano, flute, and cello, and they use completely extended techniques. It's amplified. It's actually played with blue light, and the performers are supposed to have masks on because they're trying to. The composer wanted to really try to create that the performers weren't themselves, but they were part of sort of the atmosphere, the reality, and in sort of portraying a whale and his voice. It's a stunning piece of work that by using extended techniques on the piano, cello, and the flute, he creates a complete atmosphere of being underwater, which is one of the coolest things I think people will see.
Jay, we have listeners of all types that are listening to all of our stations and reading our website. We have some real hardcore classical musical fans. We have casual classical music fans, contemporary, etc. So as they're listening to this and hearing all this great information about this concert series, for those who aren't as familiar with the genres and such, what's the hook for them? Make the case. Say, hey, listen, check this out. Check out one of these 6 dates that we have coming up.
I think great music should be listened to in either way, and I think one of the things was that when we started the whole series was that you can actually listen to music that maybe you didn't know about. Well, last year is more like we were actually playing composers that people knew about, and we were actually featuring the performers and sort of getting to saying hello and getting to know you kind of thing by playing Mozart's and the Brahms and the Beethovens. But I mean, this year it's definitely taking it to a new level and presenting works that I really love. And I mean, in some ways, having a chance to listen to some of these instrumental music, I mean, it's not just from bygone era, but I mean, this is important music that's still being played in other musical centers of the world. And to be able to have that presented in the Cape, especially not during the summer when there are a lot of activities going on, but during the year that people can actually come out and say, oh, I live just down the road from that church. I'll go check it out on Sunday afternoon. I think it's something not only possible, but I mean it's something that people should really take advantage of because not only is great music deserve to be heard, but it should be celebrated in such a way that people not only have access to it, but I mean in the way that we're going to be presenting it. I mean I think people not only should give it a chance, but give it a chance to be riveted by the performances.
Do any of the symphonies have spin-offs like this? Is this done anywhere else in the country? Are you guys kind of novel when it comes to this kind of a spin-off, if you will, of the main symphony?
Well, the Boston Symphony does it. They have a whole arm of called the Boston Symphony Chamber Players. So they present about 3 or 4 chamber music concerts from their Boston Symphony principal players. And also other symphonies have their occasional chamber music concerts. Probably not as well known as Boston Symphony because they've been doing it for a very long time. But yeah, I mean it's not unheard of, but I think in such a way that the Cape Symphony has promoted it and has given support is, sort of, it does act independently, and also has a chance to feature performers that aren't going to be heard on the Cape necessarily. So I have that freedom to invite guest artists whom I think are terrific, and people don't really necessarily get to hear, during the season if they weren't playing with the symphony. So I think it's a good chance for not only more variety, but also a chance to actually see some up and coming great young artists and some really established artists, like we presented in the last concert with John Deek, who was longtime associate principal bassist of the New York Phil. I mean, worked with Leonard Bernstein. I mean, he in his own is a towering figure in the compositional world. So I think in some ways that, as it gets known more, I'm hoping that it gets more integral in part of presenting with the concerts, not only with the symphony, but I hope it actually gets to really thrive and flourish in the years to come.
Well, the new year is bringing a new series with Nth Degree, the Cape Symphony's chamber music ensemble, as they welcome in the new year with a new concert featuring 3 of the most frequently performed American composers and, of course, their own musicians. And Jay Cosmos Lee is their series director and violinist. Jay, thanks so much for spending some time with us today here on the Sunday Journal. Appreciate it very much. Tickets available for all the shows at capesymphony.org. And have a great new year. Jay, thanks for being with us today.
You too, man. Happy New Year, and I'm excited about the new season when spring training comes around.
Absolutely. We'll talk more about baseball in a couple months. Pitchers and catchers report in February. Okay, Jay.
That's right.
Thanks very much, and thanks for being with us today on the Sunday Journal.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.